one team that is kind of flying. I would think they're flying under the radar. That's the Montreal Alouettes. We welcome in Joey Alfieri, the defending Grey Cup champions. And would you say the Owls are flying under the radar? Because all we're hearing about is the Argonauts are losing everybody on their team, and Winnipeg's having trouble re-signing and losing their starting right tackle. I know William Stanback is gone, but how are things in Montreal, my man?
Things are good, man. It's, living the dream out here. The defending champs, they haven't been able to say that in a while around here. Look, I think flying under the radar, back-to-back free agency periods, that's okay. I mean, it's fine. You can't really manufacture news. I mean, if other teams are signing or agreeing to terms with players, that's all good. But I think, what the Owls proved last year, their championship recipe was adding CFL free agents on the first day of free agency, but the second and third day as well. And going out there and getting those CFL rookies, I add the air quotes because they're guys with some NFL experience, but guys who are new to the CFL, and you find the right guys and you can win a championship that way. And they're a lot more cap friendly than going out and spending big money on Feb 13th. I think last year was Feb 14th. So this is the recipe that clearly that they've gone with. And I think, if it's quiet on the Montreal front, I think it's by design. I think they really believed that they preferred to keep their own guys, and that's what they did. So keeping Mustafa Johnson and keeping Sean Lemon and Darnell Sankey and Tyrese Beverett, that's where they put their priority. And when you look at the end result in 2023, it's kind of hard to argue with that.
It really is. I think a lot of teams sit here, if you're Toronto and you think, how are we not re-signing our guys? Or if you're a team that's not spending a boatload of money. I mean, it's easy. And then you can understand why they're excited in Saskatchewan. And now in Winnipeg, when you get Brady Oliveira and Dalton Schoen re-signed. But as Justin mentioned earlier this hour, sometimes in the league, you can get kind of blinded by the shiny new toy. But really, as the Owls showed last year, you win with culture. And the culture in Montreal, seems to be at an all-time high.
Yeah, and it is. And I think people around here have dubbed that Grey Cup win as a culture win. Like, it's not like things were horrendous where they were before, but you could just tell that there's been a shift in attitude. And I guess, at this time last year, fans were worried about the amount of people and the quality of the player that was going out the door. And it's no slam on the players that left. I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty around here. So I don't think anybody blames anyone for walking out the door. But when you do get that restart and that refresh on the roster, you can kind of mold things and you can mold that culture differently because there's just so many new guys that you can shape it kind of however you like. And sometimes it works the way you shape it. Sometimes it doesn't. This case, it worked. But it's just, I think you look at some of the key guys that they've brought in. You think of Reggie Stubblefield, who was great. KB Onento could have very well been a Grey Cup MVP with the way that he played. Austin Mack and Tyler Snead. I mean, those are all guys that were new to the CFL that at some point went through growing pains. But at this time last year, CFL fans did not know who those guys were. So, winning the Grey Cup on February 14th is fantastic. You want to come out as a winner or a loser on those days, it's all good. But at the end of the day, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, those things, you do your talking on the field. And so it's great. A lot of teams have made some really sharp moves, some less so, but, it's all going to play out during the season. And I think it's hard in the CFL just because you do go out there and you do have guys that you've never seen in the league before. You don't know how they're going to respond to this style of football, but those guys could emerge as superstars. And that's what you saw in Montreal last year. But I think, Jason Moss really helped set the tone culture, from a culture standpoint was, what you're getting at. And I think there's no doubt about it that a new culture has been built. And these guys are confident, man. They haven't lost since September the 15th. That's a long time to go without a loss. So the culture shift, it definitely worked.
That is a long time without a loss for sure. Anything surprise you from what we've seen so far in the free agency period?
I'm trying to think. Nothing really surprised me. I know people are or flipping out over the Argos. And so I think the Argos are going to be fine. This is just what happens when the quarterback goes from making X amount to being the highest paid player in the league. But I think that the Argos have shown that they were able to build what they've built over the last couple of years is fine. I think they're going to be fine. I know people in Toronto are worried, but I think they'll be okay. Surprising, maybe that Winnipeg was able to keep the two guys you mentioned. You hear so many reports and rumors from insiders that you're like, you know what? It for me, it was always hard to envision Oliveira leaving Winnipeg. I mean, he's the Manitoba boy and whatnot, but you hear things and you're like, oh, okay, maybe not. But the fact that the cap person in Winnipeg deserves a raise, a tip of the cap, because I mean they've got Caleros making whatever he's making. Lawler's almost at 300 apparently. They signed Oliveira, they signed Schoen. Like, that's five guys. Jefferson re-signed before free agency. I mean, I don't know how they do it out there, but credit to them because definitely those amounts are they're adding up quick, and they found a way to keep those two guys yesterday. So that was maybe the mild surprise, but I think it's kind of gone the way most people had anticipated.
We are seeing the Owls, though, tied to potentially Matthew Betts, the BC Lions and Defensive Player of the Year, the defensive end who has yet to sign or agree to terms. Matthew Betts would be a big add to a defending Grey Cup champion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you look at that position, that could be a position of need as well. If you're just looking at the depth chart on paper with Luol Uguak heading to the NFL, heading to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, with Betts, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I don't know if they're in or not. I'm going off the reports that everyone has as well. But I mean, obviously, there's a natural fit there. A really good player, plus a guy from the province of Quebec. He's a Quebecer, Francophone guy. So I mean, people in this city, in this province, are rooting for it to happen. We'll see between now and Tuesday when free agency opens where it goes, but I can understand the link there. I think that a defensive end, a Canadian defensive end, would make a lot of sense. But whether or not, again, it comes back to. And I have this discussion over Twitter all the time with fans. It's like, yeah, okay, this is what you want to do, but are you willing? Were you willing to lose a Lemon or a Mustafa Johnson or all the guys, the Sankeys and the Bevrets, all those guys we talked about before? Were you willing to lose any of those guys? No. Well, that takes up a lot of cap space. If you look at the teams that have signed free agents, a lot of those teams are losing free agents as well. Whereas Montreal's brought back, a lot of their starters as of right now. Uguak, Mack, and I think Stanback are the starters that won't be back. But there's continuity, and I think there's a value that comes with continuity. So can it work? We'll see. Obviously, you never want to rule it out, but you don't know. But obviously, from a standpoint of a French Canadian player coming to the province, you root for it. But there's a lot more that goes into it than just that.
So lastly, the two-part here. They're asking how ticket sales are going in Montreal, obviously coming off a championship. And secondly, are you going to be playing in the Big O when they redo the roof? Or are we potentially looking at at a Grey Cup coming back to Montreal? Yeah. The $800 million going into the new roof at the Big O.
I mean, man, that's a question probably for somebody. That question's above my pay grade. Both of those questions are above my pay grade. There's been a lot of discussion about the stadium and the renovation that's going to be underway here. But I mean, man, that's so far down the line. It's like, I think it'll be completed by 27 or 28. And we're in the Olympic Stadium every day. Like our main offices are in the Olympic Stadium. So the players train out of Olympic Stadium during the off season. The main locker room is at Olympic Stadium. Football ops are here. Marketing obviously is here as well. Tickets, like everything's here. Everything's been centralized here. But this place is so big, like you don't even see that there's renovations going on or starting or anything like that. This place is huge. Ticket sales, I know that there was an article that came out last week in one of the French language newspapers here that says that they're up, I think, 31%, if I remember correctly. And then whether or not, the Alouettes come and play at Olympic Stadium, that's before my time. I remember in the in the Mark Trestman days, and even before then, they used to do, I think it was just Fan Appreciation Day. The last game of the regular season used to be here, and they used to put 40, 50, 60,000 people for what was usually a meaningless game because they'd already wrapped up the East Division by then. So we'll see. I mean, it's so far down the line. We'll see what ends up happening. I'm a big fan of Molson Stadium, but I've also had a lot of memories at Olympic Stadium as well with the Alouettes. So it'll be fascinating to see. But I don't think they're there yet. I don't think they've even begun, exploring that. There's so much time that has to go on between now and then that I guess they'll revisit that when the project is closer to completion.
Yeah, and if it's not till 2027, we're a little ahead of the game here. Joey, I appreciate the time, man, and I hope the offseason's been great and continues to be good for you.
Thanks, buddy. I enjoyed this so much. I'm not doing it again when Rod Pedersen's on. I'm only coming on when you're on.
How about that?
Deal.
Spicy.
Deal. Well, write that down, Clark. Write that down. Joey Alfieri, the Alouettes. Take care. Our guest here on the video chat. Yes, lots of comments rolling in. They love Matthew Betts potentially in Montreal. Ryan McCarthy says that would be huge.